Another shocking incident comes to the light in the aftermath of the Shanquella Robinson case. An audio that was leaked online features a woman asking her friend to stop and call an ambulance, otherwise she might lose her leg. What a horrifying story, right? Hi everyone, and welcome back to Celeb Live Channel. The investigation of the Shanquella Robinson murder sparked public interest in similar cases, where victims have been cruelly mistreated by the people they trusted. This woman in the audio was stabbed at least 6 times by her own friend. She made it alive and got medical help in time to tell the press and the world her story. Stay with us until the end of this video to learn the details of another merciless attack on a woman by her friend. Although nothing can be done for poor Shanquella except for punishing her murderers, this woman in the audio got really lucky. Meet Dejon Dajanae, a brave girl who survived the brutal stabbing by the hand of her friend and shared the details with the Chronicle Speaks reporter. Dejon recalls that she still feels uncertain about this story. After all, the person who attacked her was her close acquaintance, and it's just hard to relive this incident over and over again. As it turns out, Dejon and her so-called friend Abigail, who later turned into a furious slaughterer, knew each other for almost 6 months. They weren't super close, but you already know a person for quite a while. You don't expect any betrayal, let alone harm. As the victim claims the incident was a result of an innocent and even childish argument the two girls got into over the lost smartphone. But who stabs a person because of that, right? Dejon said that it seems so strange. One day, you're on good terms and the next day, she stabs you with all her force. What a crazy thing to do. Let's dig into the details. It all started on the day when 2 girls agreed to meet another friend of theirs at the airport. Dejon delayed their departure from the house because she didn't want to go out without her phone. She looked around but couldn't spot it anywhere. Abigail, who was already waiting for Dejon for some time, joined her in searching for the missing device. But suddenly, she stopped and asked why Dejon couldn't see the obvious thing. The phone was right in front of her nose. Dejon wasn't sure if it was a joke because she was still trying to find her smartphone and it was nowhere nearby. Finally, she saw it and the device was actually right in front of her nose. The friends entered into an argument and called each other names. Abigail called Dejon a baby who couldn't lift a finger to properly look for her own property, and Dejon honestly answered she had no idea the phone was close and accused Abigail of not showing her the location of the phone right away. Dejon recalls telling her friend that if the phone was right where Abigail could see it, she should have just given it to her so they could proceed to the airport with no delays. She thought that it was a typical verbal disagreement between 2 acquaintances and never expected it to turn into a bloodbath. Who would expect their friend to hurt them as a result of such incident? However, that reminds us of something. Do you remember the happy face of Shanquella as she shared her stories on Instagram announcing the start of her vacation in Mexico? She didn't know back then that her companions and college mates were plotting something really nasty. Dejon keeps insisting that Abigail was no more but an acquaintance to her, but even so, she has never thought that the girl will be so crazy as to stab her multiple times. In fact, Dejon confesses that she called Abigail crazy because of that incident with the phone. But Abigail's reaction frightened her. She grabbed a knife and demanded Dejon if she knew what the knife was usually used for you. Without thinking much, Dejon answered yes, but Abigail didn't calm down. She approached Dejon and attacked her with this knife, probably just to prove how crazy she actually was. Dejon was bewildered by this turn of events and couldn't even protect herself. She could only shout from pain, fear, and agony. As Abigail hit her with a knife across her back and thigh, she reached for the stomach. Dejon got to her senses and began to beg her friend to stop this pointless massacre. The hotel camera was recording the audio and captured the terror in Dejon's voice. The victim memorized these moments forever. She says that she was seeing her friend making one blow after another and even tried to seize her hand and prevent her from stabbing. She claims she remembers every time when metal was plunging inside her flesh, and she couldn't help but think that this was her friend doing all this unimaginable stuff. As it turned out later, Abigail is not a newbie when it comes to piercing another human being with a big knife. It's said that she previously stabbed her brother but wasn't charged in the result. As Dejon was fighting for her life, she opened the door of their room and asked people for help. However, it was so dark that many people thought it was some sort of prank and didn't hurry to rescue. So imagine that. A bleeding woman who literally holds her insides in her hands is crying for help but gets no response. My indifference might have us all killed one day. It's hard to imagine what state of terror and helplessness Dejon was in at the moment. Dying, covered with blood, suffering from immense pain everywhere, with her attacker, which was her good friend literally a couple of minutes ago, still next to her with a knife, and people paying no attention to her misery. So Dejon ran for her life and tried to reach her phone, the thing that got her into this mess. She says that Abigail made no intention of helping her call the ambulance. Instead, she went into the room, packed her things, and left without a bit of regret or remorse. It's hard to believe such people are walking among us, pretending to be our friends, and then leaving us to die on the floor in a puddle of our own blood. Even if acting out of rage, Abigail could still call an ambulance for her dying friend. Yet, she didn't. This reminds us of another terrifying story from October 2022. When Cabo 6 didn't provide or didn't wish to provide quality medical help for Shanquella or share truthful information about her state, things could have been so different for them, for Shanquella and her grieving parents. Dejon says she finally got help and people managed to call the police. However, she started to doubt if she could make it. After all, she was lying on the floor, holding what was coming from inside her belly with her bare hands and waiting for the pain to just stop. The ambulance was nowhere near coming to rescue her, and she felt like giving up on life because the suffering was unbearable. Crying, she asked for someone to help her end her life. 5 minutes before the arrival of the ambulance, she began thinking about her family, her mother and sister, and these thoughts gave her enough strength to last until the medical team's arrival. She wished she could just black out, but she was conscious all the time as this was happening. And worst of all, instead of treating her wounds, caregivers started questioning her about the incident. What a way to help a poor woman fight for her life. At last, one of the present policemen realized that Dejon needed to be sedated because the pain was too much to bear. The next thing Dejon remembers is waking up in the hospital and her body covered in patches. Later, she learned that the surgeon had to cut a piece of her stomach because the knife caused too much damage to the organ. And what Abigail? Well, as you remember, she left her dying friend without a shade of shame. She even called her boyfriend so he could help her get as far away from the crime scene as possible. And although Dejon didn't hear from her so-called friend, that boyfriend called the hospital to know if Dejon was okay. Probably Abigail made him do this call because the guy was more interested in what Dejon was going to tell the police and how she was going to deal with her assaulter. Dejon tried to convince him to turn her because doing such a thing to your friend, as well as to any other person, is a serious crime. Dejon has many years of recovery ahead, both physical and mental, because one cannot simply forget about such things. She even hopes to face Abigail in court one day and to see justice being served. The only thing that matters to Dejon is to know if her attacker feels any remorse at all, or does she think she'll get away with it? And of course, she wants the criminal to be punished. She thinks that 20 or 25 years behind the bars would help her heal better and work as emotional therapy. She expresses hopes that Abigail will become a better person after serving time in jail. Dejon wanted to make her story known to the public. That's why she created a post on the GoFundMe webpage sharing her side of this incident. She also requested support from the users of the website and any possible share they could provide, whether it's money or a piece of advice. Dejon was saying that she was never a person who came crying for help, but she found herself in a desperate situation. While still in recovery, she's unable to work and pay her bills. She requires a lot of money to cover her medical bills and confesses that she has no insurance. Apart from financial support, Dejon says that any words of wisdom or prayer will be deeply appreciated and speed up her recovery. These two incidents, Dejon's stabbing and Shanquella's murder, are a waving red flag and a reminder to all of us that we should double-check who we trust and who we call our friends. Because a friend can give you his hand in need, but apparently a friend can also stab you to death. These stories are definitely enough to evoke trust issues in many people across the globe. As one Twitter user nicely put it, better to have an enemy who slaps you in the face than a friend who stabs you in the back. Fake friends are no different than shadows. They stick around during your brightest moments but disappear during your darkest hours. And another added, all you need to know about fake friends, their hugs are actually stabs. They wear beautiful masks to conceal their inner ugliness. They use you until done. They are worse than the enemy. Well, while we still process the horrors of the recent events, which had happened with young and happy women like Shanquella and Dejon, let's take care of ourselves and be attentive to those who are around us. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to get all the hot updates on the lives of your favorite celebrities.